Hello and welcome. My name is John Hampton, Deputy First Selectman of the town of Simsbury, and I'm delighted to guest host an episode of a special report from the Farmington River Watershed, one of my favorite organizations that's based here in Simsbury that serves a very important mission of protecting our water and our watershed. And I'm delighted here today to have Eileen Fielding, the Executive Director of the Watershed, and Laura Wildman, Engineer and Director of the New England Regional Office of Princeton Hydro. And we're going to talk today about the Spoonville Dam, but before we get into that, I wanted to talk to Eileen about the watershed, what you do. I think a lot of people scratch their heads and say, what does a watershed association do? What is a watershed? So if you could tell us a little bit about the organization and your mission, we'd appreciate it. So welcome.
Sure, thanks. Well, when you say that you're from a watershed association, the first thing you have to do really is explain what a watershed is, because that's not a word in very common use. And a watershed is just a slightly bigger concept than a valley. People know what a river valley is. Well, a watershed is really the river valley all the way up to the tops of the ridges on either side. So it's all the ground that's draining into a particular water body. So the Farmington River watershed isn't just the river. Okay. It's also 609 square miles of land that's drained by the river. And we're a watershed association because if you want a healthy river, which is why the Watershed Association was founded, you have to take care of the land that the river drains as well as the river itself. So it's a more holistic approach. So that said, the Watershed Association is a private nonprofit citizens group, been around since 1953. In the 1950s, the Farmington River was in much worse shape than it is now. And there were local citizens who really wanted to do something about it. And they formed an advocacy group that's been very active ever since. You know, every decade has its own river issues, and the Watershed Association's always been there to try to tackle them. And where we fit in between all the government agencies and the companies that have to do with water quality and water supply is we sort of facilitate what ordinary people can do to help keep the river healthy. And sometimes that means, in fact, often it means working with municipalities, it means working with state agencies, sometimes it means working with federal agencies, or sometimes people just getting together and doing things on their own to do river-friendly practices, river restoration, river bank restoration, river cleanups, river education, things like that. And in some cases, you get to take out a dam.
Yes, the Spoonville Dam. I think that's a question that's on a lot of folks' minds. What is the Spoonville Dam? What's happening with it? Laura, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about the dam itself, its history, where it is, why it's being removed. I think a lot of folks are seeing activity down along Route 189. So welcome.
Thanks.
So, do you want to tell us about your organization, too? That'd be great.
Well, so I'm from a consulting firm called Princeton Hydro, and we do ecological restoration. So we restore rivers and wetlands and lakes, and we work all the way from up in Vermont down to North Carolina, along the East Coast, restoring these things. I primarily focus in river restoration and fisheries restoration, very specifically. So the Spoonville Dam was built in 1899. It's a concrete dam. It's about 25 feet high. And it was used for hydropower. But back in the 1955 floods, which of course had a real big effect on all of Connecticut, the hydropower facility blew out, the dam breached, leaving a large, about 45-foot gap in the dam, breach in the dam. A lot of the big fragments, the concrete fragments that came out of the dam at that time are still below the dam.
Yeah, you can see them. Yeah.
And the whitewater boaters have given them a variety of names. The largest one they call aircraft carrier.
Oh, is that right?
And the smaller one they call car rock. So, but they're really just large dam fragments. The breach has created a situation where it still disrupts fish passage.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons, really the reason we're looking at restoration of this site. To take out the rest, we need to take out the rest of it, we can then restore fish passage through this area. That'll be the goal of it. But the breach has also caused some situations of danger. We've had some deaths at the site because the breach creates a large recirculating eddy down below the dam that people underestimate the power of, especially if they're swimming in the area. And so the removal of the dam, while focused primarily on restoration of the river, restoration of fish passage, is also going to be to make the site safer for swimming and fishing.
It sounds like a critical program for really the health and well-being of our community. I think some people misunderstand that it's more of a cosmetic issue, which it partly is because it looks unsightly, but it's really the health of the river. And it looks like an epic project. And when did you start?
Yeah, and it's funny when you show people pictures, every single person we've shown pictures to, then they go out to the site and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so much bigger than I thought. I mean, you've got to go down in the gorge to really get the scale of this. We started on the project about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Was that when? 2 years?
Well,
the design contract?
Design contract, I think, was 2009.
Time always goes much faster than I expect. So, so we did the design. And we were in the process, Eileen was in the process, and she can tell you about that, of finding funding for the project. But we were able to speed up the process by bringing on a contractor that we have a design-build relationship with, and reduce the price of the project significantly. And that has allowed Eileen to use her current funding instead of finding additional funding to remove the dam. So the dam, whereas we thought might be removed a year or two from now, is now on schedule for starting the removal very soon, in about a week, next week.
Who owns the dam?
It's owned by Connecticut Light and Power.
Okay. Is it situated in Bloomfield, per se, if you're getting really technical about it?
One end of it is in Bloomfield,
Okay.
and the other end of it is in East Granby. So for people who aren't really familiar with where this dam is located, if you know where Tunxus Avenue in East Granby is,
Yes.
and Route 189 in Bloomfield,
Okay.
you can't necessarily see the river that clearly in the summertime from Route 189, but that section of the river is where the dam is.
Somebody asked me the other day, why don't you need the dam anymore?
Well, in 1899, there were far fewer reasons to hold back from building a hydro dam than there are now. Actually, this dam does have some historic significance as the first dam to provide hydropower to a city that was some distance away.
It was 1899, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So this was quite an innovation, to be supplying electricity from a distance of 11 miles
Wow.
to Hartford. These days, if you want to put in a hydro dam, we know so much more about the other values of a river, especially a hard-working, multi-user river like the Farmington River. And there are so many other considerations that come into play that you can't just kind of throw a dam up anywhere on a river anymore and generate some hydropower. It has to be balanced against many competing needs. And the economic benefit of a small hydro dam like that may not be worth the trouble anymore. So you compare that with the huge benefit to the community provided by the Whitewater Run just upstream of the dam in Terrifill Gorge. That may be the greater value of the river at that point now. So,
Because weren't they talking about a dam in Canton for a while? Hydropower?
Oh,
Are
they
still
still are.
talking about?
Yep,
Okay.
still under
All right.
discussion.
yeah.
All right.
And again, those were dams, Upper and Lower Collinsville dams, or dams that were once hydro dams, and they're under consideration for hydro again. And again, that sort of analysis is being done right now for those dams. And in the case of the Spoonville Dam, the analysis pretty much came out in favor of taking the dam out.
Now, how do you actually get the dam out? Do you do it yourself, a couple of you?
Well, Eileen and I won't be actually physically removing it ourselves, but we have a great contractor on board, Gleim Environmental Group, and they've removed well over 50 dams, maybe closer to 80 or 100. Yeah, so they're very experienced at this, and what we'll do, our design plans show, and they'll follow those, we'll be making an access road down just below the dam in the area where the transmission lines go over right now. We'll take the access road down to the edge of the water, and then there's not enough room along the edge of the water to stay out of the water. So we have to put a temporary access road along the edge of the water all the way to the dam. That we'll remove later. It's just going to be of rock, and we'll take it out later. We'll get to the dam, and we're going to use large excavators with hoe ram attachments on them,
Wow.
which are like big jackhammers on the end of an excavator, and they break up the concrete. And then we'll be taking all the concrete off site as well as the fragments, and then pulling the temporary road out as we leave the site and restoring the site and revegetating as we go
Oh,
up.
good. So are you concerned about interrupting wildlife and things during the process? Is that a hyper concern, I hope, of you to,
Oh, yeah.
as you're trying to do good, not do
Yeah.
damage?
That was all thoroughly reviewed.
Yeah.
Because in order to do a project like this, there's a tremendous amount of permitting.
Sure.
We
Yeah.
need to be permitted by the Army Corps of Engineers, and also to be permitted by Connecticut Department of Energy Environmental Protection in consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay.
So one of the considerations is what effect you are going to have on wildlife. And there's something called a natural diversity database review that's
Okay.
done well in advance of this, just in case there are any state or federally endangered, threatened, or special concern species in the area. And if there are, then you need to either demonstrate that there will be no impact, or if you don't know that right away, go out and do a study of what the potential impact is. And in this case, there were a couple of species of mussels that were mentioned to us as possibly impacted by this. We did put a mussel researcher out in the field for a couple
Great.
of days who came back and said, nope, given the circumstances here, no significant impact is expected. And then the same question arose for the very fish species that we're trying to help.
Yeah.
Well, but is the dam removal itself going to temporarily be a disadvantage to them? And the way we dealt with that is we're simply not doing the dam removal at a time of year when they're trying to move upstream.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're obviously well regulated and
Yeah.
very diligent, vigilant about what you're doing, because it seems like a obviously very disruptive, explosive project. Speaking of which, you don't use any explosives or anything to
We
break.
could have. We
could've.
put it in the design as an option, but the contractor has chosen not to go that route. And if we had, it would have been very low level. But they've decided not to, so it will be all done with mechanical equipment.
Okay.
It'll be taken out.
Yeah. I have to say, a number of people expressed disappointment. There's a certain satisfaction, I think, in blowing structures
Yes.
up.
They
would have
but
been
we
even
won't
more
be doing that.
disappointed.
That's good.
They
like
would have been
that.
more disappointed when they realized we don't blow them up all
Right.
grand like that. We
Well,
use
that's
very
good,
low level.
Because as a selectman, I don't like to get constituent calls regarding things blowing up. But I have been getting constituent calls because people are saying, oh my gosh, what's happening on 189? There's a swath of trees gone. It looks like somebody called me and said, are we developing there? And I actually told them about the dam project, but I did not know that there's another project going on that has nothing to do with your project that is actually causing the tree removal. And tell me about that, please.
Yeah, what people have been seeing so far, up to the end of June, is actually not the dam removal project.
So I'm going out of Terrafell on Route 189, and as you get to the split, on the left-hand side is where actually access is to the Spoonville Dam, correct? But there's also some tree swath. That's not you.
Yeah, the trees that have been cut are part of Connecticut Light and Power's transmission line project.
Okay,
So
interesting.
they're going to be putting in new transmission towers and new transmission lines. So all of that clearing was to meet their needs.
Oh, and it just so happened to coincide with your
Yes.
project, and you're
It
not
does.
cutting down any.
We haven't actually started our project
Yeah,
yet. So everything
okay.
you've seen to date isn't even our project. We start up next Monday.
Okay.
And so all the clearing, we would not have needed that kind of clearing. We would have only needed to be able to make sure our machinery could get down to the river. But we wouldn't have needed the extensive clearing that they need for the transmission lines. They have rules about how wide of a swath next to these transmission lines has to be cleared and maintained. So yeah, that's all to do with the transmission line. It does happen to be right over our access road. So we now will be going down a very clear access road.
Yeah, we should probably mention this is being taped on the 21st of June. So
Okay.
when we say next Monday, our project is starting the 25th of June.
That's a good
25th.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's a good
Now,
point.
we have a lot of kayakers who love to paddle down there. How is
Yeah.
this going to affect the paddlers? Tell us.
Temporarily, the gorge is going to be a little more crowded and noisy with machinery than it would ordinarily be. But actually, Laura can speak to this in more technical detail than I can, but we were very careful in the modeling of what effect the dam removal would have on the entire river to make sure that it wasn't going to harm the whitewater paddling in Terrifill Gorge.
Exactly. It was one of our biggest design concerns, to ensure that we could do this removal and yet not negatively affect the recreational value of the whitewater kayaking down there. So we did multiple meetings with the community, the whitewater community, to discuss how they use it currently, how things will change. And although some do actually like to shoot through the dam breach too, and that will be modified, and the fragments will be taken out. The primary run is above the Spoonville Dam, the whitewater run, and that will not be impacted. What will happen, though, we anticipate from the survey that we've taken out there, is that there's a lot of bedrock in this site. Obviously, it's a gorge. So when the dam comes out, we'll likely create new features and new bedrock. Outcrops will be visible upstream and new features. So we're hoping to have additional diversity and play features for them with these natural bedrock, outcrops that are there. So things will change, but we're hoping just for the better from a whitewater point of view, and from a swimming point of view, we're hoping it will be a lot safer.
You get a lot of swimmers down there? Do you get...
Yeah, I was there yesterday, and yesterday was a 99-degree day.
Absolutely.
And yeah, there were quite a few swimmers. Yeah, on both sides.
Is that a safety issue in general down there?
Yeah,
And then-
swimming is discouraged already
Correct.
at that
Okay,
site.
so
There are
there-
signs up discouraging
Lot of
swimming,
signs.
saying that it is not safe to swim there, that there are dangerous currents. But there are people, who love the spot. I mean, there are people
Sure.
who grown up
Absolutely.
hanging out at Spoonville Dam and who do swim there. So we want to acknowledge that reality and make sure that it is safer. And it's still not going to be a particularly recommended spot for inexperienced swimmers after this is taken out, but it will, as Laura says, be much safer.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. How is this whole project being funded? Taxpayer money, grants? Are we paying for? You didn't tell us.
A small fraction of the cost is from a government fund that ultimately is taxpayer money from all over the country because it's federal funding. And that is, let's see, it's less than 10% of the entire cost.
Okay.
The bulk of it is from the Long Island Sound License Plate Fund, the state of
Oh,
Connecticut.
interesting.
So thank you to everyone who's ever bought an environmental license
That's
plate
great.
in Connecticut. The year that we got that funding, the license plate fund was also augmented from other sources that was not a taxpayer source. It was the term is escaping me, but it was
SEP? Was
the
it an
SEP
SEP?
fund. Yeah, Special Environmental Projects
Exactly.
Fund. So that was the bulk of it. Connecticut Light and Power, Northeast Utilities, has contributed substantially to the project.
Great.
And then the rest of it was that Long Island Sound Futures Fund,
Okay.
which is federal government money. So almost entirely not taxpayer money, and certainly not from local taxes.
Now, no traffic issues on 189. People aren't going to be held up with traffic. Certainly, there's not a lot of homes in the area, so and I don't think there's a lot of noise. There's no nighttime construction. Great.
Right.
Correct.
No nighttime, and we don't anticipate any disruption to the traffic. Trucks bringing stone to the site or taking concrete off the site will come and go from the site, but you won't see a lot of them. Our excavator is already there, was brought in last night. So you're not going to see a lot of on and off other than the trucks that just have to bring some rock in at the beginning for the access road and then take the concrete off afterwards. I don't anticipate it's anything that's going to hold up any kind of commuter traffic. And we will have work hours that are between
7 a.m., 6 p.m.
Yeah, so they will not be in the evening, because again, a Horam in a gorge can be kind of loud. So yeah, it'll just be during the day.
Yeah, there are
And
some
it won't be
folks
on
on the other
weekends.
side,
Yeah.
East Granby
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, and not on weekends.
And not on weekends as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be cooler weather for those poor
The river's
folks.
right there, and it's
I know,
awful
like,
beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
Just
They can
in.
just jump in.
Jump in.
Yeah.
Now, I bet there's some maybe interesting artifacts down there for folks to find. Anything do you think of?
Well, that's another thing, like the trees. People think that the archaeological research being done on that site has something to do with the dam removal.
Oh, there is an archaeological
There is. You can
dig?
see it.
Yeah.
It's under these white tents that are out there.
Everything's
right now.
happening down there
Yeah,
at
right.
once.
Right, right.
But that's also
Really?
associated with the transmission line project.
Oh, so they're actually doing.
Anytime you do
research.
that large of construction, like the transmission lines and that, and you're excavating into the ground, often there are requirements to just make sure that there's nothing sensitive in that area
Interesting.
before they get built. So again, that's associated with the transmission line, not our project. Our project, I think most anything that was especially interesting really blew out in 1955. That being said, we often with dam removals find something interesting. The dam itself has 3 very large pipes that go down through the center of it. In real low flow, you can see it. Those were used for water control when the dam was first put in. And from my reading, it sounds like the upper end of that was closed off with very large timbers. I'll be very curious to see what kind of condition those timbers are in now and if they're interesting. Sometimes the historic wood is some
preserve
beautiful
it.
wood. If it's still there and preserved,
Yeah.
that is what they block the upstream end off with. I wouldn't imagine we're going to find anything associated with the old turbines. I think probably those were either taken out or blown farther downstream during the 1955 floods.
You know, 1899 it was built. That must have been an epic project in 1899.
There's pictures of it.
Do you really?
Yeah,
have
so
pictures?
there's historic pictures of it being built. And it had, just the year after, in 1900, turn of the century, had a huge flood right then and withstood that. So handled that first flood.
That's amazing.
But yeah, there's some great pictures of not only that flood, but also the actual construction of it.
Really?
Yeah, and a whole description of how they constructed, and that helps people like me who have to do a design for dam removal, because I can kind of reverse engineer based on their description of how they built it.
Do you have those pictures on your website?
No, we don't, but that's a great idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And by the way, people can go to your website for more information. What is
Yes, we have a whole frequently asked question
Oh,
sheet
good.
on our website. It's the Farmington River Watershed Association, so it's www.frwa.org. And there will be something right on our homepage to direct people to the dam removal sheet.
Excellent. I also got hold of that fact sheet, and I asked the first selectman to put it on our website as well.
Great.
Because, like I said, we're getting questions, and the more we get it out to the community, the better. And I think the more people know about your organization, the better. You're a membership organization, so people can join your organization, which is really important because you do great activities all year long to support your endeavors. How can folks get involved with your organizations and donations?
Again, the website is a great starting place.
Okay, and joining.
Sure, and there are opportunities to either learn more about your topic of interest or find out how you can get involved or take out a membership. We do rely on the support of members in the community. And, if you'd rather not go online, you could certainly give us a call, and the phone number's on the website.
And you're right here in town.
Right here in town.
You're in the old,
Simsbury.
The old library,
Yep.
the free library building. People can stop in. I know you do a lot of different events and educational forums.
We do. We do a river cleanup every year.
Yep.
We do canoe trips every year. Our watershed curriculum is used in local schools.
That's great.
We actually do a substantial amount of the water quality monitoring that happens in the Farmington River, and that information is available to Connecticut DEEP, It's useful for them. We do habitat restoration. As you can see, we're restoring a fish migration route, but we also do smaller habitat restoration projects as well, and we work with community groups who are interested in the same things.
Well, you're a very important partner to the town of Simsbury, as well as how many other towns in the watershed?
23.
23.
Yeah.
But we're lucky to have you right in this community. What projects are coming up that people should be aware of other than this?
Other than that dam
Yes.
project, and besides that.
I know, that little dam project.
Right. Well, we are involved in what we call buffer projects.
Okay.
Because one of the big pollution issues in a river like the Farmington is just what runs off the ground and the streets and the parking lots into the river. So if you can have strips of vegetation along the river other than just short grass, that helps to filter and slow down some of that contaminated water that would otherwise be getting in the river. So buffer projects are putting attractive native vegetation strips along the river, and we're involved in a few of those right now. And time does not allow us to describe all the other things that we're doing.
Because I know you're not short-staffed, but you're always short-staffed. You
We're
have a small
staff. Yeah.
But you have a
Yeah.
great board, and people can volunteer, right, for the
Yes.
watershed?
Yeah.
You're always looking for volunteers.
Volunteers, members, and community partner organizations are the way we get things done.
And Laura, are you enjoying your time spent here?
The Farmington's such a beautiful river.
It is. Where are
it's
you from
just-
originally?
Connecticut as well.
Okay, where?
Yeah, over in Woodbury
Okay.
is where my family is, and I'm in Glastonbury.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just beautiful. I mean, the Farmington, to be able to work on a river that is this beautiful and has this much value to the communities around it, I often highlight it, even when I give national talks, as an example of one that really enriches the communities it flows through. You can see all the businesses associated with the river, people walking down along the river, kayaks passing you on the backs of cars, and I mean, they're really the communities that that this river flows through really benefit. So it's wonderful working on a river like the Farmington.
That's great, and we just got the big Wild and Scenic announcement, which is
The bills are in Congress.
excellent.
Yeah.
So, folks, we're going to wrap up, and I wanted to thank you both for being here today to talk about the Spoonville Dam project. And this is a special report from the Farmington River Watershed Association. Please support this organization, and thanks to SCTV for filming us today and the volunteers. Please support SCTV, a great community access station. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Take care.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.